What's going on, everybody? Mortem here. This time we are talking about the Inquisitor class and its archetypes in Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous, which is currently in beta. First things first, the Inquisitor is a divine caster. They use wisdom as their casting slot. They often get to pick a domain of their chosen faith. They do not get the domain spells from those domains. They only get the abilities from the 1st and 8th level that all the domains will give you. If you want a full list of the domains, I recommend you check out my cleric video for that class, as I do cover all of the domains and show you actually what every single one gets. There are over 30. There's a lot of them. That said, the Inquisitor gets a spell list that they specifically use. I mean, it's a combinations of spells from other divine schools, but they get a list that they specifically get to choose from. And real quick, before we jump in, I just want to mention that Inquisitor is a personal favorite of mine, so just kind of informing everyone of my slight bias before we jump into it. I actually do like Inquisitors a lot. I think they're really cool. They are like the assassins for their faith. Thing is, that's not always a cordial relationship between them and their deity. This is actually shown in Pathfinder Kingmaker. There's an Inquisitor you can meet towards the end of the game who actually isn't on the best of terms with his god, and it just kind of is what it is. So there's just a lot of cool storytelling potential there, in my opinion. But suffice to say, they are basically a type of assassin who track down threats to their god or their faith. And in a fantasy world, that takes a lot of forms, as there are a lot of deities. So as a base class, we pick up every skill as a class skill, so leave you kind of wide open to do whatever you want there in terms of class skills. For proficiencies, Inquisitors are proficient with all simple weapons, the longbow, the short bow, and whatever the favored weapon of their deity is. They're also proficient with light armor, medium armor, and shields, excluding tower shields. Now, as I mentioned earlier, and by the very nature of their class, the Inquisitors will pick a deity as well as a single domain. Again, they will not get the spells from this domain. They just get the 1st and 8th level abilities. Inquisitors also pick up the Detect Magic ability, which will let them, of course, identify magic, and this is primarily used in dialogue. At 1st level, they also have Stern Gaze. They are skilled at sensing deception and intimidating their foes. They receive a morale bonus on all persuasion skill checks made for intimidation and perception checks equal to half their Inquisitor level to a minimum of a +1. And then we come to Judgment. So, Judgment takes a lot of different forms, which hopefully I will throw up on screen here. But at 1st level, an Inquisitor can pronounce judgment upon their foes. So starting when the judgment is made, you'll receive a bonus or special ability based on what judgment you activated. Every 3 levels after this, you pick up an additional use of this per day, and once activated, this lasts until combat ends, at which point all of the bonuses just immediately stop. Now, in combat, you can switch judgments. It costs a swift action to do. Now, at 8th level, you will also be able to pick up Second Judgment. This will allow you to pick 2 judgments instead of just 1, but only consuming 1 use of the ability. So essentially, you'll be able to have 2 judgments active at the same time. At 14th level, they pick up Exploit Weakness. So whenever you score a critical hit, it will ignore any damage reduction the target has, as well as stopping any temporary regeneration that is keeping the target from dying. However, creatures that have an innate regeneration aren't affected by this, so like trolls and stuff don't get affected by this. At 16th level, they pick up Third Judgment, which will allow them to use 3 judgments at the same time with the cost of 1 ability. And then at level 20, they pick up True Judgment. Whenever they use the Judgment ability, they can invoke True Judgment as a swift action. Once declared, you make a single attack. If the attack hits, it deals normal damage, but the target must make a Fortitude save or die. Now, regardless of whether or not the creature makes that save, it's immune to the ability for the next 24 hours afterwards, which obviously doesn't matter if they're dead. Now, all the way back at 2nd level, Inquisitors also pick up Cunning Initiative. They will add their Wisdom modifier to initiative checks as well as their Dexterity modifier. And one of the bigger abilities for the Inquisitor is Solo Tactics. Essentially, what Solo Tactics does is that any teamwork feat the Inquisitor has will basically give its bonuses regardless of whether or not your allies actually have it or not. So the way teamwork feats work, if 2 of your characters possess a teamwork feat and more often than not are standing next to each other, they will then gain a little bonus. Solo Tactics makes it to where, as long as you're standing next to it and the Inquisitor has the teamwork feat, the Inquisitor will still benefit from the feat. However, the ally will actually have to have the feat in order to gain the benefit. So basically, this lets the Inquisitor pick up teamwork feats and still gain their benefits regardless of whether or not the allies actually have them or not. And then at 5th level, they pick up Bane. For a number of rounds per day equal to the Inquisitor's level, they can imbue their weapon with the Bane special ability as a swift action. Now, this says that you have to designate a foe, and you'll get an enhancement bonus of +2, better than its actual bonus to the weapon, and it will deal an extra 2d6 damage against selected foes. Thing is, the selected foes part is done automatically for you in game, so you don't actually have to select anything, you just have to turn on Bane, which makes this fairly powerful, but is of course limited to a number of rounds per day. At 11th level, they pick up Stalwart. An Inquisitor will use their mental and physical resiliency to avoid certain attacks. So if you make a fortitude or will saving throw against an attack that has half damage, and you succeed on that throw, you will instead avoid the damage entirely. This is essentially evasion, but for fortitude and will versus reflex. But it does have the small condition of only being usable if you are wearing light, medium, or no armor. And then at 12th level, they pick up Greater Bane. Whenever you use the Bane ability, the bonus damage dealt increases to 4d6 instead of 2d6. And beginning at level 3, Inquisitors will begin picking up several teamwork feats in addition to their regular feats. So like many other classes and archetypes, they get 6 of these at a base class, and essentially every few levels they get to just get an extra teamwork feat in addition to their regular feats that they get to choose. Now that brings us to our first archetype, the Faith Hunter. So the Faith Hunter, as you can see, loses its domain. However, it does pick up a couple of extra abilities to replace that. So the only one I can show you, however, are the Sworn Enemy bits. So a Faith Hunter will choose a single alignment at first level that opposes their own along either law or chaos or good or evil like axis. So if you're good, it has to be evil. If you're chaos, it has to be law, etc. Essentially, you'll designate a sworn enemy of an alignment, and those enemies are your sworn enemies. And then at level 6, once per day as a swift action, a Faith Hunter can smite one foe she can see. If the foe is of the sworn enemy alignment, the hunter gains a +4 bonus on attack rolls against that foe, and a bonus equal to half their Inquisitor level on damage rolls made against that foe. And if that wasn't enough, this will bypass the DR of any enemy that is actually one of their sworn enemies. However, if the target is an enemy that is not their sworn enemy, it is just wasted and no effect happens. Now this will remain in effect until the foe is dead, or the next time the Faith Hunter rests and regains their uses of the ability. At 10th level, and every 4 levels after that, a Faith Hunter can smite enemies for 1 additional time per day, up to a maximum of 4 at level 18. Now the other ability is just blank text, but I assume it has something to do with the Faith Hunter, obviously, so can't really show you what that is, which brings us to Monster Tactician. So Monster Tactician actually loses most of their judgment abilities. They do actually get to pick it up at level 19, but it gets replaced with the Summon Monster class feature. Starting at first level, you'll be able to cast Summon Monster as a spell-like ability a number of times per day equal to 3 plus your Wisdom modifier. It is a standard action. The creature will remain for 1 minute per level instead of 1 round. And then at 3rd level, and every 2 levels after that, the power of this ability increases by 1, basically upgrading the Summon Monster spell up to a maximum of Summon Monster 9 at level 18. At level 5, they pick up Summon Tactics. Every time a Monster Tactician casts a summoning spell, all the creatures summoned by that spell are treated as if they knew the Monster Tactician's teamwork feats, which needless to say is a pretty strong ability. Now that brings us to a personal favorite of mine, Sacred Huntsmaster. This combines some of the stuff from the Ranger class with the Inquisitor. So for starters, we do lose our judgment abilities completely this time. We don't even get it at level 19 like the others, we just lose it. However, it gets replaced with an animal companion. And we also pick up Hunter Tactics at level 3, giving your animal companion all of your teamwork feats. And we pick up some of the Ranger stuff I mentioned through the Favored Enemy abilities. We'll get to pick a Favored Enemy, which we will gain a +2 bonus on weapon attack and damage rolls against. And then at 5th level, and every 5 levels after, you get to select an additional Favored Enemy. Every time that happens, you actually get to pick a new enemy, and if you want, you can actually stack the bonuses so they increase by +2. Now, while it does say that if you choose humanoids or outsiders as a favorite enemy, you have to choose a subtype, at least currently, and it didn't work this way in Kingmaker either, you don't have to do that. You can just pick humanoid or outsiders. And I think that's just to make the game feel a little better. For instance, a lot of demons are actually like outsiders, so there are a bunch of subtypes within that, like Fiend. Just keep in mind, you don't actually have to select the subtypes there. Now that brings us to another very cool archetype of the Inquisitor, and that is Sanctified Slayer. So Sanctified Slayer, like a lot of the other archetypes, sacrifices their judgment abilities for other stuff. So at level 1, they're actually going to pick up the studied target from the Slayer's class, which I should have up here on screen since the Inquisitor portion doesn't actually really tell you much about it. In addition to that, at level 4, they actually start picking up sneak attack dice, which is going to give us extra damage when we catch enemies flat-footed, that is to say in a situation where they wouldn't get their dexterity bonus, which can be done from things like sneaking or stuff, but also when you are flanking someone, which is very easy to do with a party. Now, even perhaps cooler than this is that at level 8, you start picking up Slayer talents. So I should have a list of these up on screen. However, it's worth mentioning that this actually encompasses a lot. There are Slayer talents, there are Rogue talents in that tree, there's actually a Ranger's weapon combat like style talents in that tree as well. Now that said, you can't take the advanced talents on those trees. So again, I should have this up ideally. The advanced talents are not available to you. Overall, you will actually get to pick several of them as you level up. This is in addition, actually, to your extra bonus teamwork feats and your regular feats. So this is actually pretty strong. Now that brings us to Tactical Leader. We lose solo tactics, however, it gets changed to the Tactician ability. But before we get into that, at level 1, we pick up Leader's Words. So your Tactical Leader will receive a morale bonus on all persuasion skill checks, even diplomacy, equal to half your Inquisitor level. This replaces Stern Gaze. And then, as I mentioned, we pick up Tactician. We will actually be able to use this as a standard action to grant our teamwork feats to all allies within 30 feet that can see and hear you. And then they will retain that bonus for a number of rounds. And as you level up, you get more and more per day uses of that ability. And at 14th level, you pick up Battle Acumen. You'll be able to grant your judgment benefits to a single other ally within 30 feet who can see and hear you as a standard action. This will last 1 minute. You can use it a number of times per day equal to your wisdom modifier to a minimum of 1. So this just lets you grant your bonuses to your team, which I thought was really cool. Moreover, it is worth mentioning real quick that you do lose some of your teamwork feats on this archetype. We only get 3 versus the 6 we normally get. There you go, guys. That is the Inquisitor and their archetypes. And again, kind of personally a bit biased because I do actually think this class is really cool. But there you go, guys. There is a look at it. I personally think it's really awesome, but I'd love to know what you guys think down in the comment section below. If you liked the video, please remember to like, comment, subscribe. It helps the YouTube algorithm out, helps the channel out. We are growing absolutely tremendously. Cannot thank you guys enough for that. Literally could not do this without you. So thank you. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.